I'm always fascinated to talk with Jamaicans who can recall significant events in our history. I'm even more intrigued if the memories are about experiences I have only heard of or read about. You know, like living at Port Royal during World War II. During those years, saltfish was scarce. Or remembering that there was a hurricane in 1944. He was only a youngster during these events, but he would go on to head the Jamaica Defence Force, and he was a tour de force, especially at the controls of a helicopter. Today, I'll profile Major General Robert Neish, Chief of Staff of the Jamaica Defence Force from 1979 to 1990. He served the country in so many ways. This is Profile. I am Faye Ellington. You lived in Port Royal as a little boy during
Yes.
World War II. I mean, I only heard my grandmother and mother talk about that. What are your memories of that time?
Well, happy childhood, a very, Port Royal's a nice place to live. It's sea and fishing and
But why
swimming.
did your parents go there?
Because my father was in the army during the war. He had been an officer in the Jamaica Voluntary Artillery, and he was brought into regular service because of the war, and he served at Fort Clarence, which is now Fort Clarence Beach, and at Fort Rocky. Fort Rocky is along the Palisades Road. And we were stationed in the military housing there, which is now the new town houses, where they provide dormitories for the students at the Caribbean Maritime University. And I learned to swim in the pool at Morgan's Harbour. It was the
Are those things clear memories for you?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So how many years were you living there for?
I think about 3, 4.
So you'd have been
Not
around
sure.
about, what, 4 when you went there? 3?
I was about 3.
Yeah.
Yes.
So where was Mom? What was she doing when...
Just a housewife at home.
And she couldn't get saltfish because it was scarce, huh?
That's right. And you couldn't get gas for the car and so on.
What else couldn't you get, as you recall?
I don't remember much,
yes.
like butter and things that were nice. Sugar, it was all exported. It was rationed in Jamaica. Those sort of things. I remember the 44 hurricane. Don't remember what it was called now, but we were in an upstairs house.
This is at Port Royal.
At Port Royal, and I was looking out of the window, seeing the waves and the breeze and so on, and the palm trees, and then suddenly this little boat, which was anchored on one side of the jetty, was lifted up by a wave and plonked on the other side of the jetty, and it's one of these sort of clear memories. At a very early age.
Did that terrify you when you saw that?
No, it was exciting. It was interesting.
Well, you went on to join the JDF, but before I go there, let me just take you back from Port Royal. When your parents left Port Royal, where did they head to?
They lived in Richmond Park, Truman Avenue. Truman Avenue, believe it or not, wasn't developed. There was a vacant lot one side of us and another house the other side of us.
So that was near to St. Andrew Prep School, so you attended that school?
Yes, I attended
What were
that
those
school.
years like?
It was interesting, very, very, very interesting. I made lots of friends, which were friends right up until now.
Yeah. So from St. Andrew Prep, you moved on to Monroe College.
Yes.
Why did they send you off to a boarding school?
Well, I'm not really sure about that, but I enjoyed the decision they made to send me to Monroe.
How many years did you spend there?
I only spent 2 years there.
What is your fondest memory of being at Monroe and boarding school?
You at boarding school, you got a lot of time at weekends and so on to do your own thing. And Monroe is very much a rural area, so you would go out into the countryside. A lot of the more senior boys, not so much the junior boys, would find it adventurous to to find an excuse to go to Hampton, next door.
I wonder what the excuse was.
Well, but there's a cave right next to Monroe College, and we used to go up there and go into the cave, or we'd have picnics in the bush, you know. All of us had tuck boxes. You went to school with a tuck box.
If you're at boarding school, you had a tuck box.
Your bully beef and
Hang on a moment, please, Major General. A tuck box, for those of you who have no clue, is a box that was pretty sturdy, and it had a lock, yes, a padlock.
A padlock.
And that is what you brought back your special, your crackers and your biscuit and your Milo and all
and
these
your bully
things.
beef and your Milo
beef.
and your
I went to
condensed
boarding
milk.
school. Yes, I know that. So those years were great. But you spent 2 years at Monroe, then bam, you were brought back to Kingston to Jamaica College.
Yes.
What was the decision?
Well,
why was that made?
The decision was that my parents thought that boarding school was good for all of us. There were 4 of us, myself and 2 brothers and a sister. And they realized it was going to be too expensive for my second brother to come to Monroe with me. So we then went to, he was now coming up to high school, and we both went to JC.
What were the JC years like?
Well, I started out as a day boy, living at home. By that time, we were living at Jack's Hill. And it's a lesson in discipline. If I got detention, I would have to stay after my father was due to pick me up. And my father said, there's no way I'm waiting till you finish detention to take you home. You have to walk home.
From JC to Jack's
From
Hill.
JC, up the Widcombe Road, up the shortcut through Mountain Spring to
How
home.
many times did you have to do that?
I think at least 3, but it became a
So the
deterrent.
chief of staff of the Jamaica Defence Force, when he was a boy at JC, got detention at least 3 times, and his father left him to walk home.
Well, the story is that I became a boarder shortly after. It became, my mother went and worked, where she was a housewife before that. And so...
What activities were you involved with at JC?
Mostly the cadets. I tried a little sports. I was fairly good at swimming and diving, and not any good at athletics, track, but cross country, running. And I well remember we used to go up through Hope Pastures, running cross country, then across to Mona Heights. Mona Heights was pure bush in those days. There were no houses, and then back into school.
That was great exercise.
Yes.
Did you do that as boys or as members of the cadet group?
No, as just as schoolboys.
Yeah.
That wasn't part of the cadets.
What is it that the cadets did for you as a young man?
Well, first of all, it gives you discipline. It gives you a sort of focus of doing a purpose. We focused in those days on rifle shooting and what we called field craft, you know, getting out in the bush and doing things like that. Nowadays, the cadets do similar things, but there's not so much of the rifle shooting. The rifles are not at school anymore.
And we know why.
Yes. But they do a lot of disaster relief and casualty, dealing with people with injuries and so on. So it gives you a purpose. Wearing a uniform and keeping that uniform smart and in good nick is a purpose.
And your shoes,
Yes,
so
all
brightly
of that.
shining, you know.
And I just enjoyed that. I mean,
As a matter of fact, you enjoyed it so much that you were recruited
yes.
to the Army. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we talk about that process, going into, and it was not called the JDF at the time.
No.
That was a long time ago. My guest is Major General Robert Neish. So you see, we're looking at his life, not just when he served in the Army, but leading up to that and beyond. We'll be right back.